Exhaustion beset me the moment I regained myself. My body ached in strange ways, unusual for me. I was not near invulnerable like Harry, but was usually resistant to the average wear and tear. Tear and wear. Dracunin had warned me down. Vengeance? For my falling for his woman. He would have me before she did, perhaps. I took a moment to try to remember the lost time, but unmistakably, he had lied. He had used his memory-erasing powers. That had to be it. I had simply slept in a way, and I can't even recall any dreams. I felt myself weary for sleep, but just before I could nod off, I was awoken by the voices giving me a gentle nudge. Not yet, they said. Just a little further. I rambled to the cafe car, ordered a cup of coffee. The woman was gruff and in the kind of mood that spoke of a century's worth or more of beleaguered trauma. How cursed, how selfish I could be to call my immortality a curse. I had time. Time, too, was a gift. I sat back down with my coffee. I stared at it, like the color of water, the color of coffee. The prima materia came to mind. Hush, steady as she goes, said the voices. The countryside was swathed in darkness, shapes indistinguishable. I could imagine what I saw as suburban, blissful existence or a shanty town. My mind sipped at the darkness as I sipped at the black coffee. There was the gap. I saw it in a blink between two telephone poles. The Ouroboros. The chaos is infinite. That is why it is infinite. That is why it is chaos. The mind finite cannot grasp it, giving in. It stretches the possibilities, but it cannot not give a piece of itself. Bungee cord into the void. Tracing back. Tracing back. Tracing back. My mother's nose. I had invented that, or had I? A person to present myself to others. An artist. What is that? Where did that start? What was I before? What was I before? The stranger drew in the ground with a stick. Then he beckoned me to a wall, a clay structure. It was an act of a vandal. It was its indecence that thrilled me. He shaped some lines until they looked like a dog. Or could it have been a dragon all this time? Not much time. Yelling. The stranger took me by the hand and we ran for our lives. Once we had rounded the village and were back at the entrance, Agatha saw me and beckoned me telepathically. Yes, it was only with her eyes, but then I could swear she could speak to me. Who is he? She said. The stranger gave me a carved piece of charcoal. How long I made it last. Then he ruffled my hair and was gone. There was a time, I thought. I fantasized he was father. But that made little sense. He was just a stranger, no resemblance. But to me, he was like some guide thrusting me into the future. The world was malleable. There was a control to be found, to be sought. But everything was taken from me. How immortality gave and it took away. I had been sold a fiction, and that fiction was enough control for now. Yes, the now. The now no longer existed. For what is now when tomorrow does not threat? It's okay. You can sleep now, said the voices. There it was again. I saw the gap. Had Dracunin opened it for me? Had I let him in so that he might do so? Had he made it possible for me to speak to my sister? She had come to life as the Banyan in my... perhaps in all our sights. No, I do not think the RUS saw it. I can't say why, but I think only I saw. I saw the bunny chased by the wolf. That was where they were. Only I pitied the wolf. His chase would be eternal if she had her way, if she has her nature still in that secret place. In a train station we stopped and I looked out the window. People were gathered in front of a cafe TV screen. Scenes of something exploding on a security camera. I went down to the cafe car. There was no TV, but just then someone brought in the newspapers. I bought one. It talked about an explosion in Washington, D.C., only a few injured, surprisingly close to the place of government. Eyewitnesses describe hearing a buzzing sound shortly before a trash can exploded, sending destructive particles. A buzzing. They were not sure, but an internet group was possibly to blame. It was called The Game. It seems someone was leaving clues on the internet. goading average people to destructive ends, all in the hope of discovering further levels of reality. It was the adaptation of the internet. The internet, how well I had been to stay far away from it. But the buzzing, too much coincidence. How I craved to have Bunny next to me. Even to have my Bunny backpack. I needed to see Harry. I was horribly embarrassed, else I would have gone sooner. Failure upon failure, failed to protect Simon, failed by trusting Parker, failed Lynn, failed Chang, failed to find Simon, failed myself. At least I felt at home with all this failure. It was the sense of knowing the way forward that had misguided me. I had a number, Harry had left it with me. It was the sex shop Toad in London. I called, asked for BH. No code there. I waited by the payphone, sat in a chair nearby, fell asleep. I dreamt of riding a bicycle in the French countryside. My tire blew. I stared at the round, limp tire. The phone rang and woke me up. I answered. Hello, Harry?
Neto. Hi.
Hello, Harry. How are you? I'm in the Washington, D.C. airport right now.
Are you? Any reason? Are you coming? Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to, although I would need some money.
Say no more. I'll take care of it. Give me an hour. It's good to hear from you. Been painting much? It's been quiet here in London. Real nice. Leona and Balkus are in the Highlands. We've just been sending letters. I purchased a small castle up there. Perhaps if we'll visit, they'll still be there. Are you all right? I'm excited to hear from you.
Yes, that's nice. Yes, all fine. Thank you, Harry. I will see you soon then. Though it was a relief to hear his voice, it felt crazy-making how I was incapable of telling Harry all that happened. Not only because a phone line was taboo to our ways, although Harry hadn't thought twice about saying where Leon and Balkus were. I was too tired to worry. As I waited for Harry to take care of the ticket, I spent some time at the diner with a tuna sandwich on rye and watched and rewatched the footage of the trash can explosion. The news did not appear to mention the buzzing sound. Finally, an expert came on of explosives or something, and in the auto subtitles I could see conceded that the buzzing might have been a detonation mechanism, or the explosion malfunctioning before ultimately exploding. Still in the paper, eyewitnesses had described the buzzing coming from another distant source. Strange. Could it be related to the technology? Another plane ride. I was in first class and there was no one in the seat across from me. No champagne for me this time. Fortunately, I slept the whole way. The whole time, I struggled with the bicycle wheel by a field of sunflowers. When had I ridden a bicycle last? When I got to London, a courier woman with a distinctive mustache approached me with a sign that read, Neto, which I was startled by, but quickly they handed me something. It was a little phallus keychain, and smiled at me when I recognized it. Then gave me an envelope, inside a plane ticket to Glasgow and a lot of cash. The person tipped their imaginary hat and was on their way. I looked around me, perhaps a trifle worried, but then felt immediate long overdue relief. What had happened for Harry to be so nonchalant? I had always assumed him even more high-strung than myself, but perhaps I was wrong. Perhaps it was me all along. Ho-ho, said the voices. I didn't have long for my flight to Glasgow. Still, I was sick of air travel. I avoided the TVs with the news. I sat in a comfortable chair and stared into the void until I could feel the voices were at peace. The Glaswegian fog was soft on my skin, the gray-green stone buildings inviting me to return the caress on their mottled reptilian carapace. I would take a train to Edinburgh. Glasgow had been the soonest flight, and then to Inverness, and then a bus into the Highlands. But I surely had a moment to spare. Everything is like anachronism to an immortal, as we are never rid of the past. Winding through this old city, my present adaptation of self wars with the older, far more familiar ones. The future felt slow to creep, but then modernity brought a rabid acceleration. Everything is too soon. I turn a blind eye to the neon, the TV screen advertisements, and chase the voices down dark alleys. Uneven stones, uncertainty, that's it. A celebration of natural things. The slope of stone slabs, the teetering of wooden beams. Perhaps I was more an architect than I thought. I do not know. I came upon a church that was not a church, it was a bar. My curiosity propelled me inside, where there was music, the pink, neon, underlit walls reminding me of Simon. A shame, actually, that this was not just a church. It would be nice to contemplate what is and isn't holy within something that could not decide between modernity and history. I liked it better when churches were the place to marvel and to give artists expression, and the rest of the world was an escape from its excess and opulence. Anyway, I grabbed a stool. I ordered a beer. When had I had a beer last? I stared at the phone. There were not many people in the bar yet. A young person sidled next to me.
I like your boots.
Yes, thank you.
Where'd you get them?
Oh, Lima, Peru.
Killer.
The young person, a streak of artificial white in their locks, round-cheeked, bursting with charisma, no doubt gravitating towards me because I was as young-looking as them. They ordered a cider, spun around their chair, looked at the crowd of square-shouldered young men who seemed to come in from a game, perhaps, a match. They wore rugby shirts, I think.
Hallelujah, the gang's all here. You know, you gave me an odd feeling when I saw you sitting by yourself. I hope I'm not too forward, but I noticed the look on your face when you walked in. You probably haven't seen this kind of thing where you're from. To think I used to go to church with a bit of quiet once upon. I grew up in one, actually. But not anymore. I come here ironically, or maybe not so ironically sometimes.
No, yes, very original, I haven't.
Òran more. It means the melody of life. Fitting for a music venue, though these days the lineup's been quite shite. It's rarely this quiet. But I like it better quiet. Like I said before.
Yes, suits me too. They finished their drink rapidly.
Well, I don't know why I drink these. No matter how many I have, I can't get a buzz going. Still, I suppose it's all about the taste of the first sip. Right, good meeting you, handsome.
I watched them amble out the front door. Before they did, however, they turned and gave me a quizzical look. And then, a flash. I saw they were. But then another horde of large rugby-looking men swept through. I put down some cash and strode towards them to the exit, but I was swept up by the stampede. And by the time I was outside, there was a throng of people, small buses pulling up, and the melody of life was swelling in an uncomfortable manner. A vampire. I looked around for a bit, but then I had to make my way to the station. I almost missed my train. A young Scottish vampire. How did I know they were young? Perhaps they weren't. Perhaps they were a good mimic, not only physically but behaviorally, something I was not. Only Dracunin had that ability, strangely. The rest of us were always a little tethered in the past. I thought very little on the train ride from Edinburgh to Inverness, except that I would have liked to walk up to the castle on the hill, but hadn't had the time. I had difficulty feeling hopelessness, blanketed by fog. Fog was my favorite element. The element of transience. As I walked to the bus station, cocooned by its mist, I would duck out of the way of people almost at the last second, as they would pass from consuming aura of light to corporeal shade, their dark jackets blustering forward, blind chiaroscuro of a different kind. I sat near the back of the almost empty bus. It wasn't long before it were dark. An hour in, I was the last passenger. What was the point of keeping our old habits, I thought, as the firework exploded visibly in the Highlands? The bus driver made a grunt. Why could not have I been given an address with a courier's note? Perhaps Harry was just having fun. Perhaps it was fun. I do not know. I asked the bus driver to stop, and he did, seemingly in the middle of nowhere. They looked a little concerned, but I assured them I would be picked up from here. Would I be picked up? I saw there on a high highland hillside or cliff above with my vampiric nighttime vision sharpening, disused with time spent in well-lit cities, the contours of a turret, a castle of indeterminate size. The crescent moon appeared above it. The haze below almost seemed to sweep the plumes of grass towards its luminescence. It reminded me of Van Gogh. A crow was there, flying above the turret as I approached the coming climb. Finally, it dove directly towards me. I ducked as it nearly clipped my ear. But it was playing. It was Leona, undoubtedly. I'm coming. As fast as I can. You could have sent a helicopter or something. Leona flew back up the hill and back down several times to check on me. I saw several lights now through a thick grove of pine. The climb was steep, but I was happy enough to do it. It took me an hour maybe, and all the while I was eager to see Harry and Leona and Balkus, hopefully. The pirate vampire stood in the arched doorway backlit by an automatic floodlight. Mist whispered near his ankles like magic. Unmistakably, Balkus's cat leapt onto his back to have a look at my depleted form. My heart burst. I sat on the ground, and then with my back to them, as I looked down on the gully I had climbed, the floodlight and the moonlight giving my previous path shape, I caught my breath, fought back tears. I realized walking up this hill that this hill, these highlands even, perhaps the castle here, has not changed in at least your entire lifetime, Harry. How that was a gift. All this time I've been trying to change. So perhaps I've been deluding myself that I have changed. But always, however much I think I have, I find myself the same thing. The same problem, the same me. A dead end. Staring at the wall, you know. But this time I thought, Harry, what if I didn't see it as a wall? A wall I must get through, but instead a canvas I must paint on, you know? I'm sorry. Hello. But I had to get something like that out. If I have small talk right now, I think I would cry. Harry helped me up and held my hand and then embraced me. Balkus climbed on my back and rode with me, until finally disembarking as we entered the small courtyard. The raven, or crow, rather, as I was sure it was Leona, then swept down, playfully swiped at Balkus's tail, and then landed on Harry's shoulder. Harry reached into his pocket, got out what looked like a piece of cheese, and gave it to her. I could smell its stench, the blue cheese, that is.
She gave me swift instruction before she changed. As long as I remind her of her love for blue cheese, she would find her way back. They've both been, in animal form since I've been back. These two are as much in love as they've ever been. But it seems Balkus is in no hurry to resume his human form. If he ever will, that's something we've had to come to accept.
The castle had the character of a protected keep, but the charm of a small lodge. There was no heat, limited electricity, but Leona had insisted Harry keep a fire going in the main room fireplace for Balkus's achy joints, which is where we gathered. Harry brought in some miso soup from an adjoining small kitchen, along with some seeded sourdough. Leona picked at the end of it, undeterred by manners. Balkus huddled on my lap as I was closest to the fire. I ran my hand on his fur, on his form that was not of a young cat, not anymore. After finishing our miso soup, Harry returned with some Mexican hot chocolate. Without shame, we both met each other's gaze. We both allowed our essence to shine. He saw Baba, the cruel forest, and the warmth of her hut. The same he would see in Agatha, yet different, undoubtedly. Something I would never be able to confirm, as a vampire's gaze did not appear in reflection. And in his eyes I saw someone, something, a soul if I were to imagine it, and imagination was after all my power. Someone far more scared, far less brave than Harry. Misunderstood, yes, but misinformed, fighting a desperate uphill battle, one in which they were simply trying to catch a breath. I always imagined the color there looked a bit like waves, but staring into a vampire's gaze was an abstract affair, and understood only in abstract terms.
Dracunin.
So you see, he has left a trace, but he is not still with me. He is not still with you, said the voices, reassuringly.
Tell me.
So I recounted, and Harry gave as little judgment as I would have expected him to give. It didn't take me long to realize I was like one addict talking to another. He held my every word like it was his responsibility, and I thought how good of a therapist Harry would make. How well he took friendship, almost as a profession.
What did you call him? Leroy.
Yes, it isn't. It is not... See, this is my getting wrapped up, whether Dracunin's influence, the confidence he gave me, or my own self. It's just a word for a vampire. I am as ignorant as any about his nature, this man's nature now. Chang, I should say his name.
No, it sounds familiar. Not his powers, of course. Perhaps that is to do with his own powers. As far as the delay, the urge not revealing itself, yes, the technology has had more unintended effects than we can keep track of.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how it works, old chum. Back to square one. Humility is a practice, not a destination. I would have thought more of Dracunin. Perhaps he has his reasons, which doesn't excuse it, but if we're all stuck with him, if we'd all consider seeing him again, then I suppose we have to try to figure him out. As far as Simon, I'd wager anything that this Parker had something to do with his disappearance. Not sure I'm even mad at the man. Not in the way I would have been in the past. I suppose we should return to New York at the soonest occasion, whether you come with me or not.
Yes, returning does give me pause.
No, I think I'll go first. Believe it or not, there's a mailbox for this place down by the road.
About that, Harry.
Yes, I know. Leona and I spoke before she transformed. We both agreed, and I don't know what you think, but I don't think we have a lot of time. If we risk being discovered, I think it's a risk we take for expediency's sake. Leona had a dream she shared with me. Something in it, something she called the quickening. In any case, something tells me Simon has more in his arsenal. Something also tells me he's all right. I think you should rest for a few days, and then we'll talk.
The next morning, after a modest breakfast of toast and a handful of bitter blackberries, we took to a path behind the castle and walked the highlands. Leona followed us from above for a while before returning back. It seemed she didn't like being far from Balkus for long, and he didn't wander far from the castle. The sky was halfway clear. It was brisk but not unpleasant. Harry gave me a scarf of Leona's that was a black wool with little specks of white. We walked in silence on the uneven terrain, until the silence compelled us to really breathe, to relax. The memory of the fountain seemed to invade in between the steady alternation of steps. We saw a black sheep in the distance, hampered by its wool weight. It looked at us, then disappeared behind a bluff. Then, as if summoned by the black sheep, a herd of white sheep, bulbous and unkempt, rose to meet our sight. If they weren't sheep, we'd think they were there to charge, to attempt to attack or something. We both chuckled. Then we sat on the hillside, meditative-like. Time passed. A few flurries. We set our roots down. Understood we were the same kind of tree, that our branches had suffered unimaginable amount of breaks and rotten times, had had blooms, and that we'd lost track of how many seasons we've made our way through. There is a common word for love. It hides in plain sight. It's glaring like the sun and moon, oft ignored but ever present. Instead of looking at it in the face, we whisper and gossip about it in metaphor. I am the story told by my ancestors, who are a story told by theirs. I have always been immortal, even before the bite. I am simply unbearably awake to that truth, and to lay witness to it. The snowflakes fell softly on our shoulders, yet they felt unbearably heavy.